last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. The number of children being stolen into foster care in Indiana is up this week despite national trends of foster care rates going down. An Indianapolis man faces charges that he killed his mother and 2 foster children, and the father whose children were killed in an arson fire that was set by the mother's boyfriend files a lawsuit against the child protective industry for negligence, claiming that he had made reports to CPS about abuse but nothing was done. In California this week, the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Center wins a $13 million grant to help foster children, and a Los Angeles County workers claiming harassment after claiming that reports were falsified in the cover-ups of mistakes that led to child deaths. The Notorious toy hoarder of San Diego gets 60 days in jail and 120 days of home confinement for hoarding 12,000 donated toys for needy children. And the governor signs legislation extending the time they can keep your kids hostage in foster care from age 18 to 21. A former Riverside County child welfare worker pleads guilty of sexual abuse of a 15-year-old in his care. And the people of California who have been exonerated of child abuse are finding it difficult to get off the child abuse register. Things are heating up in Oklahoma again as the death of a 7-year-old girl who had frequent contact with the child protective industry sets off the legislature to improve upon child protection in the state. And the state is looking into privatizing its child welfare system. Nebraska, the number 4 state in the country for child abuse deaths, not only has a child welfare worker stealing money to buy herself a flat screen TV, and not only has one of their foster parents doing 15 years in prison for sexual abuse of a foster child, but they're losing foster care contractors because of failure to pay for services. After losing to Texas in this year's adoption bonus race, and after overturning a ban on gay adoption last week, last year's winner, the state of Florida, concocts another devious plan to get more disabled kids adopted. Jury selection begins for a Jacksonville woman who pretended to be a child protective worker in an effort to kidnap a child, and a protest is held in support of a couple of adoptive parents who stand accused of using bizarre forms of punishment on their foster children. In Ireland this week, the child protective industry is accused of breach of foster care legislation. The child protective industry of India is being accused of failure to monitor unrecognized children's homes. In Australia, Victoria's courts are accused of failing sex abuse victims by putting children on the stand. New Zealand takes issues with bras for 6-year-olds. And the New Zealand child protective industry begins a recruitment campaign by portraying a baby-stealing social worker who loves her job. The child protective industry in Scotland is getting more referrals to their hotline, but less children are being put on the child abuse register. In Nepal, the government is preparing to rein in child welfare centers that are operating illegally. In entertainment news this week, rumor has it the Dancing with the Stars contestant and teen parent poster child Bristol Palin is spotted in a bar in Alaska. Oksana scores $20,000 a month in child support, and Amber Portwood, star of MTV's hit show Teen Mom, gets a visit from Child Protective Services after going off on a psycho trip by beating her boyfriend in front of the cameras. In England this week, child welfare leaders warn of the perfect storm between rising caseloads and budget cuts. A Northamptonshire social worker loses an appeal over a 2-year suspension for dishonesty. A British child protection expert and college lecturer is jailed for child porn. And the UK sees a 52% increase in the number of children being referred to social workers since the death of baby P. In this week's case of the blind leading the blind, police in Toronto, Canada are training African cyber cops to protect children and track down predators on the internet. In New York, a group of shrinks known as the American Psychiatric Association are debating on whether or not to put parental alienation on the new Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. And after passing 2 lie detector tests, a real mother whose son disappeared from a Brooklyn foster home rips the police for focusing on her instead of following the other leads. 2 bills by System Suck representative and former foster parent Michelle Bachmann and Al Franken designed to keep foster children in their old schools keeps getting pushed back in Congress. And family court judge Karen Lynch Bernard of Rhode Island needs to pay her back taxes. Illinois gets a $10 million grant to adopt more of your children out. And Chicago Public Schools reverses a decision and hires a man with a 25-year-old drug conviction who had been good ever since. The state of Texas is investigating child placement agencies following the horrific sexual abuse of a foster child by her foster father. In Kentucky, an audit finds that foster children are being placed in the homes of sex offenders at a cost to the state of $300 a month. And a teacher sues a sheriff's detective, a prosecutor, and his ex-wife for a false accusation that he spanked his son right after the judge threw it out of court. And finally, tonight Illinois, a judge has sanctioned the Washington, D.C. child welfare system for disregarding court orders by appointing a new agency director without consulting the plaintiffs in a long-running class action lawsuit against the agency. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.